I think that may have been
Record.
it.
That's it.
We are
Let's just start
recording.
ad-libbing. You go ahead and start. We can always edit it.
Dad, tell us your full name.
Raymond Watson Bellamy.
Okay.
I usually say Raymond W. Bellamy.
And you were born in November 25th, 1929?
1929.
Where
My birth certificate says I was born on November the 12th, but my mother disputes that.
Where were you born?
I was born in Conway, South Carolina.
And you were born to, your daddy was?
Leon Shafter Bellamy and Ruby Cannon Bellamy.
And when was your daddy born?
He was born November the 5th, 1929.
Do you
No, beg your pardon, not 29, 1910.
Okay, so he was 19 years old when he had you.
Yeah. And my mother was born in the same year.
1910. And do you know, you were the oldest of...
I was the oldest.
Of how many?
5 children.
You had one brother?
One brother and 3 sisters.
Your brother is?
Kenneth.
Okay, and then your oldest sister?
Is Marjorie.
Okay.
She's a Wiley now. My next sister was Kay Eileen, who's a Westbury now. My youngest sister was Judith Lynn Bellamy, and she is a Holland now.
Are there any stories you'd like to tell us about any of them?
I will tell you a story about what my dad would tell people when we would have a group together, and he would tell them that after we had Raymond, we almost didn't have any more children, because evidently for the first 6 months I had colic, and it was my mother's first child, and I'm sure she had a time, and I was hyperactive also.
And you were fussy.
Yes. So between the colic and the hyperactive, I'm sure I was a handful for the first child.
And you sort of stayed that way, didn't you?
Yeah. Even today.
You're not so fussy, but you are definitely very active. How old are you today?
Tomorrow I will be 83.
Okay, and very active. Pretty fit.
Yeah, I don't have the energy I used to have because of a heart condition, so I'm limited in what I can do. I can walk at a steady pace, but I couldn't jog at all if I wanted to.
But you still work out several times a week, and
yes, I work out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in a cardiac rehab unit here in Pawleys Island.
So any other stories you want to relate to us about your brother Kenneth or your sisters? Anything in particular stand out?
When I grew up in Conway, we lived in Conway until I was about 9 years old, and having been born in 1929 when the Depression started, I grew up during the Depression years. And we grew up, my dad was a foreman at Stilley's Mill, which was a veneer plant. But shortly after the Depression set in, he lost his job. They closed the mill down. And so we moved, Margie and I were the only school-age children at that time, and we went to a grammar school in Conway. And we lived in a mill town, a Stilley Mill town, where there were houses that the mill owned that people lived in. So we lived there until we moved to Pawleys Island.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Probably about 1938. We moved to Pawleys Island because there was no work for anyone to do, and my dad and granddaddy sharecropped Mr. Parker's farm at Pawleys Island, and grew tobacco and cotton and vegetables, things of that nature.
So you worked on the farm too?
Yes.
As a boy of 8, 9 years old?
Yeah, we would pick cotton and work in the tobacco, and they grew truck crops, beans and tomatoes and things like that to sell, and we would help pick those.
And that's how you survived the Depression?
Yes. You know, you would sell the tobacco and the cotton, and you would split the profits with the owner of the farm. And so what little money you made would allow you to buy staples and maybe some clothes and things like that. But essentially it was a very difficult time.
How long did that last?
It lasted until World War II started in 1941, December 1941.
So
And we moved to Murrells Inlet at that time because my dad was able to get a job. And
your grandparents, where did they live?
they lived on the farm. There were two houses on the farm. My mom and dad and we children lived in one of the houses, and my granddaddy, grandmother, and my Aunt Irma lived in the other house.
So these were your Bellamy, your dad's
Yes,
mom
my
and
dad's
dad.
mom and dad.
Okay. Do you know where your mom's parents, where did they live?
They lived in Conway.
Okay.
My granddaddy on my mother's side, Cannon, he had a dairy farm. They survived the Depression pretty well because he had a dairy farm and he distributed milk and orange crush-like drink around to the people in Conway.
Okay.
So they survived a lot better than lots of people.
And I imagine you couldn't really drive well, your dad couldn't really go spend gas money so much to go visit. How often would you see your mom's folks?
I saw them very little after we moved to Pawleys Island.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that time we didn't have an automobile. So we
And it would
had
have been expensive.
we had no way to travel. In fact, the approximately 4 years I lived in Pawleys Island, I never saw Georgetown. So
which is not that far away.
We were limited to where we traveled very much. And I attended a little one-room grammar school in Pawleys Island.
Until what age?
Until we moved to Murrells Inlet right after, and then I attended Socastee High School for 1 year, and then went to high school in Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
The Myrtle Beach High School on the school bus.
And you graduated high school at what age?
16.
That was really young.
Well, but you only had to go until 11th grade. In South Carolina at that time, there were only 11 grades in school.
Okay.
A couple of years after I graduated, they upped it to 12 grades.
Okay.
But when I went, it was only 11 grades. So,
were you top of your class?
oh no. School was not my top priority.
What was?
I loved hunting. And just the outdoors and playing basketball. I played basketball when I was in high school, and so schoolwork was not top priority.
But you were.
And I paid for it later.
You had to study very hard to
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah.
Your dad, did he work anywhere else besides here?
Excuse me.
Would you like some water?
No, I'm all right. My dad, when the war broke out, my dad did farming and whatever he could to make money. I would like some water.
I'm going to pause this.
Okay.